London HR Connection. I'm really pleased to see such a fantastic turnout, a really capacity audience tonight, so I'm sure you'll have a great evening with us tonight. Those of you who haven't met, I'm Craig McCoy, I'm the chair of London HR Connection, so welcome. And tonight's speakers, we're going to be talking about the subject of employee engagement, which I'm sure as HR professionals is always close to our hearts and is very much on the agenda for most HR functions, I think, these days. But do we actually do it well? Do we actually know what is the secret ingredient that makes employee engagement work? So we've got two experts in the field tonight. We're going to hear from Jane Sunley, who's actually written a book on the topic, and is the chief executive of Purple Cubed. And we're going to hear from Sean Wheeler. Sean has got a very impressive HR career and has done a lot of work in the hotel and catering and hospitality industry, places like Malmaison and the Dorchester Collection. So without further ado, I shall hand over.
Thank you very much.
Ooh, thank you. So I'm excited and yet challenged to be here. Excited because you've got a full house, which is fantastic. Challenged because whenever you go and talk to HR people, I always feel as if I'm teaching you all to suck eggs. So I will apologise before we start with that one. My approach is very simple, practical, so hopefully you can take something from that. And I'll tell you a bit more about Sean in a minute. This is us. I founded the business, Purple Cube business, 15 years ago, when nobody really talked about employee engagement very much, but everybody talked about the war for talent and the kids who we thought had been out about a year and a bit when we started to put the business together. And of course it's gathered momentum, and even though I've been doing this for a very long time, I can't even tell you how much things have changed in the 15 years since we've been doing it. So when we started, we just dealt with the hospitality industry, mainly because we thought the hospitality industry really needed us. And over the years, I have learned that actually you all have the same issues, whatever industry you're in. So we've kind of expanded a bit with just some of our clients, people we work with. Most of the people we work with are quite a long-term relationship, which is always nice, really. So let's think about the issues. Employee engagement is something I talk about daily, and I just thought I might ask you, if you're brave enough, on a scale of 1 to 10, how well you think your business engages its employees, with 1 being we never think about it at all, and 10 being we're brilliant, everybody gets out of bed in the morning singing the comedy song and dashing to work. So anybody more than a 5? Quite a lot, good, because you're an HR team and that's great. Keep your hand up if you're a 6. 7, 8, 9, 10s. Okay, so a margin of improvement perhaps. It's my job really just to set the scene. Sean is going to give you all the practical stuff, which is great. I think these are some of the things that people are talking about at the moment. Our own research says that 100% of businesses believe they should be engaging their people. Yeah, 86% of CEOs say they don't have a strategy, which is slightly worrying and a bit of a disconnect. So knowing this as we do, we set out at the end of last year to do the biggest research project the company had ever done, which was if employee engagement is so important, and Deloitte is saying it's the number 1 business issue is culture and engagement, why isn't everybody doing it? And we found some slightly interesting conclusions. So we did this bit of research, and if you email hello@purplecube.com, we will never hassle you. We might put you on the mailing list and you can disengage yourself if you wish. But if you email, we will send you a summary of the report, and it's quite useful if you need ammo for going to walk off to see the FD or the CFO or whoever about why you should do this stuff. And this is where the eggs come in, which I'm pretty sure you know, but sometimes it's easier to have the data, isn't it? Last week I went to speak to a whole load of finance people at the ICA, And it's quite interesting that we had more people afterwards from this group of CFOs and FDs ringing up saying, can you come and help our business? Because they've got the purse strings. It's quite interesting. But if you articulate it in a business savvy way and show the numbers and all the rest of it, as I'm sure you know, they're almost not quite clamouring at the door, but I was quite taken aback by the number of people who got in touch and said, can you sort it out for us, which is fantastic. More FD audiences, I say. So what was this research all about? We did 12 interviews with business leaders and thought leaders. We did about 220 odd people, filled in a survey, and then we did some focus groups just for the sake of talking to some entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial students. And the split was pretty wide. About a quarter of them were from hospitality, because that's where we came from originally. And most of them were pretty senior people. We talked to them about a whole range of issues, but the first big question was, what is your definition of employee engagement? Because I know as I go around my daily business, there's a bit of confusion and a bit of ambiguity, and it all gets very complex. So we had quite a lot of them. In fact, from 12 interviews, we had 13 definitions. I don't quite know how they managed to do that. And these are some of them. We had a great deal of strength of feeling. I have abbreviated the swear word, but there were swear words in there. There were people getting really cross about this stuff. And it was very, very interesting. And what we thought we should do, because I'm always thinking if research is there, research is great, but you have to have some conclusions, don't you? You have to have some things that you're going to do as a result of the research. Otherwise, everybody reads it and goes, this is really interesting, we must do something. And then the day-to-day takes over and it doesn't quite happen. So we came up with a definition for employee engagement. And this is it. Richard Branson always says, do everything tweet size, and I totally agree with that. You know when you get those massively long mission statements on plaques on the wall and stuff, and then nobody ever remembers what they are? Well, that's what happens with employee engagement, really. So you get the brigade over there who think it's a fluffy HR notion, and you get the people over there who are so busy trying to define it and understand it that they never get anything done. So, whether you adopt that or not, fine, it's a starter. It's saying, let's make it simple. So when I was talking to the FDs and the CFOs about this, they said this will never work because it doesn't fit with our bell curve. So when we're doing performance management, we couldn't possibly have everybody exceeding expectations. So we had a bit of an interesting debate about that, in that people do want to work in a place where they can feel proud, where they can achieve, where they can excel. And I suppose if you're saying, only 5% of the people in this business can exceed expectations, then that's probably not setting people up for success. So, whether it works for you or not, great, but there it is. So, okay. I thought I'd talk to you briefly about a case study. Sean is going to give you lots and lots of different stuff, but let's just talk about the link between employee engagement and productivity, because this case study I'm going to show you in a minute absolutely links that. There's been some debate in the HR press, and I'm sure you've read it. Some people say, yeah, absolutely, inextricably linked. Other people say there is absolutely no link between productivity and employee engagement. But if you take all of the research aside and just look at it from a common sense point of view, clearly if people have not got the Monday morning feeling every morning, and are actually going there willingly, happily, and all the rest of it, then you would think productivity was going to get better, and of course it does. But yet 70% pretty much said they thought there was a link. Which takes us back to our 86% of CEOs that don't have a strategy for engagement, when everybody's saying there is a link on productivity, and everybody but everybody at the moment is tasked, are they not, with productivity. So, to the case study. This is a business with £220 million of turnover, 33 sites, 5,500 employees, and 8 HR people, including the HR director. And it was a business that was being grown for sale. It was a 2-year lead-in, and they had to do something to up the share price, but there wasn't a lot of money to spend on refurb and plant and all the rest of it. So they decided to do 3 things. They created a new employer brand. In fact, they didn't have an employer brand before. It's a hospitality business. And when we all first went to look at the business, everybody had these T-shirts on that said "Be Happy." And of course, nobody was being happy, they were all being miserable. But they spent all this money on 5,500 T-shirts. So we said, well, how about we create an employee brand here that is called Be Happy, because you've all got the T-shirts, but let's make the T-shirts true, and let's make you all be happy, which was not like rocket science, but anyway. So that was the first thing to do, was put a whole load of stuff in around employer branding, EVP, promise, all of that. The second thing they did was they divested all of the things that HR were doing, like recruitment, keeping them out of tribunals, writing lots of policies, all of that kind of stuff, to the general managers, not writing the policies, but the general managers and other managers, leaders, were tasked with recruiting their own people. There's a radical thought. And of course everybody was horrified and said they will never do it, but funnily enough they got a bit fed up with HR sending them people that weren't right anyway. So I'm not saying anybody here would ever do that. And so they said to the general managers, you are responsible for employee engagement, you are responsible for recruiting the right people, you are responsible for performance managing them, you are responsible for making them feel motivated and all the rest of it. And people just embraced this massively. And then the third thing they did was they digitised the whole of the soft stuff of HR, so that people had a comms hub, they knew what was going on, they could submit their ideas, they could do their performance reviews, they could do their career planning, and it was all employee-led, if you like. So these are the results, and I did test it from the back, whether you can read it, but the bottom line is that through this strategy, within 2 years, they added £3 million onto their bottom line, which meant when they came to sell at a PE of 10, they added £30 million onto their sale price. So of course the shareholders were very happy. Everybody was very happy. They massively reduced their labour turnover. They were saving nearly £500,000 a year on recruitment. And this is all because of those three simple things that they did in the strategy. Because there was a lot of effort that went into it, and it was absolutely led by the board and the CEO. Just some of those things just started to ramp up. My favourite bit of this story is there was a part-time barman who they were asked for ideas, how could we make this business better, how could it be a better place to work, all of that. And he submitted this idea, which was to do with cleaning the beer lines, the pipes the beer goes through. It's not very exciting or sexy or anything. And nobody had thought of this idea before, and so they implemented it. And in the end, it saved them £500,000 a year. This one guy, who it turned out was a bit of a boffin and a bit of a scientist with a part-time job while he was studying. So of course, as soon as this all happened, we steamed in and said, why did you never say anything before? And he said, nobody ever asked me. Nobody cared what I thought before. Nobody would have, I wouldn't have ventured my head above and suggested it, because I probably would have got the sack or worse. So it was kind of sad, but also extremely uplifting to know that one person had had an idea like that. And you might think, oh, well, that's hospitality, but actually I think that probably happens in many, many businesses. The more we see of it, the more it happens. So an inspiring story, but it's not isolated. There's another one where a company in group went through bottom performing in group to top within 11 months of doing this kind of stuff. So it's massively powerful, but you have to ask yourself, if that's the case, why isn't everybody doing it? So our research said there's a general lack of understanding about employee engagement and what that is. Is it about initiatives? Is it about a cohesive plan? Lack of investment is probably to do with people not being able to argue persuasively, perhaps, or just that everybody goes, oh, well, that's, it's a longer term strategy, let's put it at the bottom of the list and let's do something that will get us a quicker return. But there are quick wins within all of this. And the last one is perhaps, indicative of the first two, that people just don't really have the data, and that's why digitisation is a bit of a no-brainer. You won't be able to read this from the back, but I'll tell you what it is. It's the thing that we call the Purple Plan, and we use it for diagnostics and a whole load of other things. But really what it's about is this bit here, the circular bit, and this bit here is all about recruiting the right people, inducting them into the business, goals, managing them, developing them, leadership, succession, all of the kind of employee life cycle. And typically what happens when people come to us is they ring up and they want something in that bit there. And then we'll always say to them, but have you done the other bits at the top? And this is where it might be simple, I might be teaching you this, okay, this is where I think things go wrong sometimes. Because if the board isn't firmly on board, the culture and value stuff isn't absolutely embedded, not just on a sign or a card in someone's pocket. If the technology is not there, millennials will just expect this, never mind any debate. So if it's not there, you're going to have an issue. Employer brand, is it clear? What does it mean? Does it align with your strategy? Does it align with the external brand? Health and wealth and well-being, is all of this stuff in place? And comms, because if you're going to do all of this, there needs to be some mechanism for two-way ongoing dialogue, information flow, whatever you might call it. So this is not anything, oh wow, I've never seen that before. But people, and I can tell you this from experience, have been doing it so many times, people always want to dive in here because I think they believe that's where they'll get the biggest investment, the biggest return on investment. Whereas actually, when initiatives fail, I mean, there's all sorts of figures, but if you look at McKinsey, Harvard, Forbes, all of them, they're saying the number of initiatives that fail, 70%, 75%. I think this is why, because the fundamentals aren't in place. Maybe you might ignore that, you might disagree, you might not. So before I introduce Sean, my three things, I would think if you've got some takeaways, the only things that perhaps you could be thinking about in the shorter term is how could you get business leaders doing a bit more of this stuff? And it's not a massive sea change that tomorrow HR do everything and then the next day the business leaders do everything. It's obviously, it's a marathon, not a sprint, this. So it's about having a cohesive plan, simple, joined up, measurable, quick wins, medium term, longer term. And that takes a lot of thinking. And of course, if everybody's busy trying to keep people out of, ER issues or recruiting or writing policies or whatever they're doing, you haven't got time to do that thinking. And obviously that's your job, really. So simple, joined up. And the digital stuff, just think about those things because I think it makes a massive, massive difference. So on to Sean. So I'm going to sing Sean's praises because he never sings his own. Sean is one of these HRDs, or kind of people as you are, who doesn't go around kind of going, oh, look at me, aren't I fabulous? And he's a real stealth leader in that he just gets the job done. We've probably worked together on 4 projects now, I think, for 14 years or something. And it's always about having a clear plan, doing the right things, keeping it simple, delivering it. So I won't say any more than that, but over to you to give some practical stuff.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for letting me speak this evening. Thank you for that introduction, Jane. What I thought I'd do is just give a little bit of the history of who I'm working for at the moment. I have spent 5 years with Marmalade in the Hotel Van, which is a really lovely boutique hotel. Then just spent 5 years with Dorchester Collection, which is the Dorchester Coward Park, 45 Park Lane. And now I'm working for a private equity company called Starwood Capital, some of you may have heard of. And they are trying to get their foot in the UK. And what they've done is, over the last 3 years, they've been buying up a lot of hotels around the UK. We've currently got 4 different brands. So we've got the Principal Haley Hotels, which are great big, massive hotels, meeting and events hotels around the UK. De Vere venues, again, conference and events. Smaller properties called Four Pillars, which are in the Oxfordshire area, lovely hotels. And then we bought a couple of individuals, the Roxburgh in Edinburgh, and Townhouse Collection, which is the Blythewood Square in Glasgow, and the Bonham in Edinburgh. So they've been spending, they want to get their foot in the UK, they're pretty massive, 44 billion investment, so they see an opportunity to really create a great British hotel brand. So all in all, we're around about 50 hotels around the UK, so pretty well spread. And my job is to really try and bring all these hotels together and to create one company, one brand, one identity, one vision. So you can see it's quite a big challenge. I joined about 6-7 months ago now, and we're on the start. I'm going to tell you, we're really on the start. It's like a startup without closing. if that makes sense. We are trading these hotels and we're trying to reposition, refurb and redo everything at the same time, but it is very, very challenging. We've inherited everything at the moment. We've got 4 cultures, 4 ways of doing things, 4 payroll systems, you name it, we've got it. So it's an interesting challenge for us at the moment. So to create some story, we've divided it into country and city, and I'm really primarily focusing on the city division at the moment. We have got country, we're going to park that for a while, and it's going to be fine, but we really want to focus on the city. So Edinburgh's, some of you may know the Hotel Russell in Russell Square, beautiful building, but it seriously needs a serious investment. They're investing, they're giving us about 200 million just to invest in about 15 hotels at the moment. So they're seriously putting some money where their mouth is, which is great. So we wanted to create a bit of the story, because in hotels, I'm being honest, some of those hotel brands are okay, but not necessarily maybe some of the places you may choose to go and stay in, unless you're having a conference. It may not be where your destination from a leisure visit perspective. So we wanted to reposition some of these hotels and create more of a lifestyle feel to some of these hotels. Amazing buildings, but a little bit tired. So we created a story with Project 1898. And Project 1898 is a kind of interim working brand that we're using at the moment to try and make sure to try and create a story to attract talent to come and work for us, first of all, and then to also go out to guests and potential markets to say, this is what we're doing, we're creating an image, we're investing 200 million. We are, got to look to the future, don't look at today, look at tomorrow. It's going to be amazing, come and join us, basically. And that's really what we've been doing. The idea is that we'll have 4 or 5 hotels converted by September, and then we launch the new brand. That brand's going to disappear, it'll probably be an internal brand then. We'll launch the new name of the brand in September this year. So that's kind of where we sit, just to give you a very quick history lesson. So where do we sit? Well, you can see what we are. Currently, we would say we're kind of corporate upscale. We're probably sort of Hotel Collection, Park Plaza. We're sitting in that nice little gap there, McDonald Hotels. So quite corporate, probably good leisure. Leisure's quite discounted. We really want to shift ourselves and move to much more of a lifestyle brand and maybe up this scale a little bit to become not ultra luxury where I've just come from, where it's the white glove brigade, to and the white and the collar and tie and all that stuff, to much more of a lifestyle. So we're going to compete with things like Malmaison, Hotel de Van brands, which is a bit sad because actually we think they've lost their sparkle a little bit because they've had a few owners, and also the Pig brand. Have anyone heard of the Pig brand? Yeah. It's amazing, isn't it? It's an amazing brand, and so we really the founder of Hotel de Van, Robin, actually started the Pig brand. So we really want to compete with those. The challenge for us is they're probably more boutique, 30, 40 bedrooms. Our smallest is 150, our biggest is 400 rooms. So to create that environment in those size of hotels is going to be quite challenging. So what are we going to do? Well, to be honest, I use the same formula. I've used it for I keep it very, very simple, to be honest, because from a hospitality perspective, it boils down to having a happy team. At the end of the day, when people come and stay in our hotels, it's all about the experience. They might talk about how fabulous, and I know when I first went to the Dorchester, the carpet was really thick, and I remember going home saying, you know what, they've got really thick carpet. But when you go and stay in a hotel, what do you talk about when you go home? Do you talk about the carpet? I did a little bit. But what do you talk about when you go and stay in a hotel?
Amazing service.
Yeah, the service, the experience, the memories, the quality, the attention to detail, they got it right. Wow, that was better than I expected. All those little things. That's what creates memories, and that's what encourages you to go back and tell your friends and all that kind of stuff. And so for me, it all starts at the source. It's really Mary in housekeeping that makes the difference. It's Fred on the bar who makes your experience. It's not the general manager, though they drive it and they lead it. It's very much at source. And that's really what, very simply to me, because I know if it's a happy team, we're getting a happy guest. If happy guests, then the owners, they're going to come back, and ultimately the owners are happy because they repeat business, and they pay a slightly higher rate because they're choosing our brand above other brands. And let's be honest, it's we're in a very competitive market in hotels and restaurants, so there's a lot of choice out there. And if you're first choice, then we're going to do very, very well. So very simple model. So the first thing I did was set that up, and to be honest, I went to the board and said, okay, I'm going to set a challenge here. I'm going to say to you, we're going to be the best employer in hospitality by 2018. And I'm thinking, okay, this sounds quite exciting. But we needed to set a really big goal to try to get them to buy into it, because if it was going to be, well, we might be the best, I know we can do it because we've got some fabulous people. They just need blossoming. They need to be really engaged and encouraged. So for us, we want to be in the Sunday Times top 100s. We've set some real big milestones to try, and now on the back of that, I've got to hopefully deliver that through a bit of a plan. So our plan, so at the current focus, and I say I'm 6 months in, we are focusing on really 3 very, very simple things. First of all, our mission, vision and values. And that's something that we started when I first arrived, and I'll share that with you in a second. Because we have got 4 companies, we're trying to bring them all together. Being brilliant at the basics, and I'll share with you what they are, because we forget the basics, and it actually is the basics. Like, for us, feeding our team is very, very important, because for us, a lot of it's their meal of the day. So if we don't feed them, they don't eat, basically. Promises to practices, simple things. You know, you go out, you sell a dream to someone. When you're in HR, you're selling a dream. Come and join my company. It's amazing. And then, are we delivering those promises? Are they really in practice, or is it just up there? And when you get on the shop floor, it's not really happening. And that's really that's often why people leave organisations. We're not delivering the promises. So that's very, very important. So I'm really just focusing on these. So there's lots more things to do, but that's really our primary goal at the moment. This is kind of my version of Jane's purple plan, and this is my promises to practices, and I've used this for a while now, and it probably does need a little bit of an update. But on the left-hand side, these are what I call attractors. These are what gets people into an organisation. This is what we do when we go out and sell dreams to people about coming to work for an organisation. It is the reputation, it's the package, it's the job itself, is it attractive? It's the speed of recruitment. I don't know how you're finding it, but certainly these days, with the internet, people have got their jobs out, their CVs out, 4 or 5 jobs, and if you want to get good people, you've really got to speed up your recruitment processes. So we're trying to look at a one-stop shop at the moment, because if I find a great manager, they've already got another interview. If I have to say, keep coming back, they're gone. Particularly, and so that's challenging. CSR, very important, certainly for millennials. We're getting a lot of people now saying to us, what's your ethical policy? We don't have one at the moment. So it's really what's your policy on sustainability? What's your policy on community? And again, all of this stuff we need to put in place. The guys in the middle are attractors. So what's our career opportunities, development, aligned values, very much, very, very important. Am I joining an organisation that actually meets my needs? Are we aligned? Do we actually say the same things, or is there a disconnection there? And again, what we found massively, certainly we opened some properties in Edinburgh and York, we had to go out and really look at our whole structure of rotas, hours, work, because if you think about hospitality, it's shifts, it could be split shifts. Chefs these days don't want to work long hours, and it's natural. So we've had to put a whole load of work in about work-life balance, because that actually means something different to every single person. So they're attractors, but they're also in the middle retainers. So on the right-hand side, all these other things then are things that keep you in an organisation. So the relationships, I've always been a great belief, our business is simple about relationships. People work for people, and people leave because of people. And it's as simple as that. And if you can keep it simple, then you're getting the right message. So the quality of our leaders, their knowledge, their experience of dealing with some of our challenging people, that we care about people as an individual, not just a number. And we're dealing with about 400. Some of our hotels have got between 300 and 400 employees. They're quite big businesses. Quite a lot of part-time, casual people that come and just go. It's a job for them while they're studying. But we also have a core team. The environment that people work in, very important, even down to the uniform. People want to feel proud of what they're doing. And then, as Jane said, communication and involvement. People want to bring their ideas to work. People want to be involved. We have some people that just turn up, and they tend not to stay very long. But we do have a lot of people that actually have some fantastic ideas. The best ideas are those closest to the issue, and that's usually the person at the shop floor. So I use this model, and what I'm trying to do at the moment is weave all of our things. We're looking at every single aspect of all these areas and trying to create a one-way, I'm calling it a one-way in the UK at the moment, where we can. So just in terms of our mission, vision and values, I joined in autumn last year, and I sort of said, okay, what are we going to be? What do we want to be known for? What do we want to stand for? And they've done a lot of building work, all the bricks and mortar stuff, but no one had actually stood back and said, what are we going to be doing? So we came up with it took us 2 days, believe it or not, to set the pig in Bath. We had a lovely time. It took us 2 days to work out our mission, vision, and values, because when I actually said to someone, tell me what lifestyle means to you, it really means something different to everyone. And we've spent a hell of a lot of time defining what we want to be known for. So this is some of our hotels. This is the Grand Central in Glasgow, hotel right by the train station, and this is St David's in Cardiff. Beautiful buildings, very different. So we wanted to celebrate, as it says, in great British hotels that are local at heart. We didn't want a cookie cutter approach. We wanted every hotel's got its unique personality. We want to really harness that local feel from product, from people, and so that's the sort of focus we had. We then said, okay, this is the Palace in Manchester, going through a 30 million refurb at the moment. It's going to be amazing. We talked about, okay, what else do we want to work on? So we want to really harness on the fact we're in iconic settings. In most of our cities we're in, they are probably the biggest building, or one of the biggest buildings in that area. Modern service, not where I've come from again, the White Glove Brigade, but much more relaxed, friendly, but British, not higher. How are you? Very polite, very politically correct, and then good old classic service values, bringing back hospitality as it was maybe a few years ago. We then said, okay, well, how are we going to make that happen? And we came up with 5 very simple words for our values. Values sometimes are very long-winded statements, and we wanted these words to be words that we hoped our guests and our colleagues would say about us. So when you went home, you would say, yes, it was a thick carpet, but also they were very distinctive. The team were very warm. They were very intuitive. They understood my needs. I didn't even have to ask, and it was there before I needed it. They were generous. I didn't expect the fluffiness of the towel for the price I was paying, or the extra cookie. I didn't ask for that. And ultimately, they really got the local at heart bit right as well, because it wasn't cheesy. Not everyone wasn't wearing Union Jack underpants. They were, but they really got that local at heart bit right in terms of the product, the community, the charity. Because that's important to a lot of people these days as well. So we came up with these definitions. I'm not going to go through all of these, but on the back of that, we also came up with some detailed definitions. So we tried to look at our 3 stakeholders, people, guests, and owners. And we tried to say, okay, what are our owners going to be interested in? Let's be honest, commercially best in class. So that's one of our definitions. We wanted to, from a guest perspective, we wanted to set the tone. We want to be the pig or the regional Firmdale hotels around the UK. We don't want to be, not disrespect to some of the brand, we don't want to be some of these major chains where you could be anywhere in the world and it looks exactly the same. We don't want that. Intuitive, very much about service, warm, every guest, every time, engaging. At the end of the day, hospitality is like liking people. And sometimes it's really weird, we actually hire people that don't like people. I don't know how we do that, but they actually come into our business and think, well, how the hell did you get in? Because and some of our HR people actually take great pleasure in not liking people. So, should we ever work with people like that, It's interesting, isn't it? So anyway, I actually quite like people, which is quite good. Got to be generous, and generous. When the board saw this, and I had to take this to the board, they were like, "My God, what do you mean generous? You're going to give it all away? We can't afford it." It's not about giving it all away. It's about being. It's like the virtuous servant. The sense. It's the spirit of giving, if that makes sense. So we could give a little bit more. It's a bit like Mary in housekeeping sees that Mr. and Mrs. Smith like their tea. So instead of the brand standard might be 2 tea bags, but Mary's okay. It's okay for Mary to put 4 in. She knows the guests like it. So it's those things, but actually Mary currently Mary has to ring the manager and say, can I put 2 more tea bags in? I mean, that is just crazy. So we are, even believe it or not, creating what we're calling a freedom in a framework. We're saying, Mary, you can do this. This is as far, and actually if you really want to go and give them a night stay, you might have to ask somebody. But ultimately, it's fine to give them 2 tea bags. It's fine if you know it's someone's birthday to give them a glass of champagne. How much does that really cost us? Nothing. But how much does that mean to that guest has had that little extra? That someone's taken the notice that I'm liking that tea bag. I know it's a small example, but it's the example that we're trying to home in on. Don't be mean. Don't be mean to each other. Be nice to each other. Don't be mean on portion sizes. There's a lot of language. We can use a lot of these in lots of different definitions. local at heart, we liked it, so like New York, we really liked it, so we used it twice. But we really think there's a real opportunity in the UK market to really harness that local. And again, the pig do it extremely well. They do amazingly well, and we think we really want to target that across the UK. We're in some great locations as well. And local at heart, as us, is some of our hotels. It's very interesting. We just relaunched York, beautiful hotel, Royal York, in by the station, gorgeous. When we went out there, we were amazed how many of the locals had not been into that hotel for 10, 15, 20 years, because they saw it as a conference hotel. It wouldn't be their choice to come in and have a cup of tea or go for a sandwich, because it just wasn't on their radar. And so we had to really connect with the locals. We invited all the great and good, and the mayor came. And now it's brilliant. I was there this morning, and it's amazing. The garden room is amazing. It's a fabulous building. So if you get a chance, go and have a look. So this is our journey. So that's what we came up with, and then we had the alignment, and then we started a bit of a rollout, to be honest. And we started with the people team, because we had to get them engaged, and we're calling them the people team. Harrogate's our head office, so we had to get them on board. And to be honest, that was challenging. I'll be honest, because they are we maintained the head office of one of the companies. And they are quite different, I'll be honest. And so one of my biggest challenges is engaging with these guys, I'll be honest, and that's my biggest. And I'm London-based, and they're Harrogate-based, so it's spending quite a lot of time in Harrogate at the moment trying to engage them. I had to go to our central res in Omaha. We had a central res in Omaha. Anyone been to Omaha?
Where is it?
It's Midwest. It's a long way, and it's very cold in January. And to be honest, can I tell you something? They're selling our hotels in Omaha. They're our central res. None of them have ever left Omaha. They've never left the States. And I even had to tell them, dare I say, to go and do what an English breakfast was. And I'm thinking, how on earth are these guys selling our properties? It's quite scary, really. Anyway, I'm going every few months now, not 6 weeks, it was about 3 months now, I'm going back to try and just keep them educated about what we're about. Because our guests in Windsor are ringing up saying, can I book a room? And they're going, yes madam, what's that, an English breakfast? Okay, what's an English breakfast? It was quite challenging. So what's a Scottish breakfast? My God, that blew their mind. Anyway, so we haven't got onto the Welsh breakfast yet, but we will do. So we kind of spent a lot of time talking it up, and then we did a big road show. We brought all of our general managers, and we also introduced something called Change Gurus. We kind of handpicked around each hotel about 5 or 6 people that are key people we think were living our values, and though they didn't realise it, they were living our values. So we picked them and we took them to Edinburgh Zoo, and we did a 2-day event in the Monkey Den. And that's because we called it Evolution. And we were surrounded by monkeys. It was incredible. And I said, if you don't remember anything, you'll remember you've done a training session in a monkey den. How many people go and do a training session in a monkey den? It was brilliant. They loved it. We had a fabulous 2 days. And basically, we gave them a framework to say, okay, this is what we want you to do, but we want you to be personalised. Going back to local at heart, we want to personalise it. We want you to make it your own, create your own stories, link to your values. And we said, you've got 2 hours, and here's the framework. And they did an amazing job. And so far, we've had about nearly 800 people attended the session, and we've still got a way to go. We're planning, so we're on track at the moment to finish, and that's our challenge. And we're just focusing on the city division at the moment. Just to give you some ideas of how we kind of engaged them, we got them all. We did some crazy exercises. I gave them all a wall back of house, and I said, okay, you've got a wall. You can do whatever you like on this wall, and it's your communication vehicle. So some of them painted Coming Soon, some did video, some did photography. It was fantastic. We created a WhatsApp group, and it's been amazing. We've been talking to each other on WhatsApp around the country. We coats of arms. This is Palace in Manchester. They created, are you on the bus? They kind of got the message. Are you on the bus or off the bus? Hopefully most people are on the bus. So we came up with some really great ideas, and they really have bought into it. And so we then kind of did a bit of a pulse survey. So about 2 months, about last week, I did a very quick survey monkey, £24. You can ask 10 questions, and we did a very quick survey, emailed all the team. Luckily our payroll can talk to, our 4 payrolls can talk to each other, so we sent them all an email, 10 questions, tell us how it's going. How is it for you? That was the question. like when you've had a good session. How was it for you, type thing. And basically, these are the some of the comments. So we've got, and I've obviously given you the good ones. There were some not such good ones. I'll be honest, and we need to look at them. But we can drill it down by hotel. We can know what we asked 10 things. How are the values alive? Do you know the values first of all? And this is some of the. I'll come back to this. This is just, there we go. So this is a pulse survey. We did a quick snapshot. First of all, do you know the values? And we gave them all these options and said, how many of you do you know? And luckily, the ones they did remember most of them. Some of them are like grace. So 8 people said grace is one of our values. I'm thinking, okay, a bit worrying. And then we also said, okay, well, is it living in the management team? And actually, 58%, and we've only done it for a week so far when I took this, and we've had 320, we're about 500 now. At least 58% said, the managements are living it, these values as well, which is quite good. So that's quite encouraging for quite a quick rollout, really, so that's quite good. So, but obviously, 5-6% are saying not at all. We need to get into why. So that's where we are today. What we then said, okay, let's go back a little step. So then how do we keep it alive? Because it's all right launching these values and they sort of sit there and they're on the wall and it looks amazing, but how do you keep them alive? So we've really started to look at every single thing that we're doing. So we first of all said, okay, let's do an icon and images competition so that people could actually create some images. Now again, on the left, we haven't really announced these yet, but these are just some of the ideas that came, and some of them are really good. The one on the right, the bottom, I'm not quite sure, they kind of didn't read the brief. But anyway, it is a nice picture. But anyway, they didn't quite read the brief. But they've come up with some neat, and the idea is that these will become some of our internal communications. So we'll wordsmith these, we'll get an artist to kind of put them together, and then anything internally, we'll link it to, from a people perspective, we'll link it to the icons as well. I'm not going to go through all of these, but you can see we started then to look at the whole attraction. So we now recruit against our values. So we're now saying, okay, we're looking for warm, generous, intuitive, distinctive and local at heart people. And that's really what we're looking for. So first of all, it's about, are they a fit? Do they fit our values? And then, can they technically do the job? And that wasn't happening before. It was, can you technically do the job? And then, okay, you're in. So now it's about fit first and then technical second. We did lots of low cost, no cost. I mean, silly little things like, we have Crunchy Fridays. We had a chocolate fountain the other day. So the guys are coming up with lots of local ideas just to keep it fun. We had a cycle from, it wasn't very much fun, Manchester to York. That wasn't much fun. But it was good. They raised money for charity. So just coming up with lots of different things to keep it alive. We even have briefed with a uniform. We actually briefed all of our uniform suppliers. Say we want our uniforms to be distinctive, warm. They want to look generous, so the fabric's got to look good, intuitive. So simple things like pockets. I don't know many uniform providers find pockets, and they've got to be local. So we want a local feel. So can we have a local fabric as a little finishing touch, maybe a neckerchief or a handkerchief or something that actually kind of shows that you're part of Manchester or part of Edinburgh. And on the back of that, Quality Wins is our customer service, and I've inherited this and I am working on it. It's our customer service program. It is I love the principle of it, but it's really laborious, and God, it takes ages to get recognised by it. You can only do one award a month or something. It's really not very spontaneous, so we need to look at that. And the final thing we're doing at the moment is really looking at, now I've got a feel of all the people up there. Who's our high performers? Who are people that are at risk that we need to maybe monitor? And let's be honest, not everybody's going to make it, so we have to have that conversation with some people as well. Talked about that. In addition to that, we're looking at how do we weave the values through our guest journey as well, because that's critical as well. So it doesn't need to just sit in our, on the people side, we actually need to weave it through the guest journey. So we've been looking at our sequence of service, and even today before I came here, I was talking to our brand director about how do we weave our values through our brand promises, and we're looking at how can we make the welcome really distinctive? How can we make the welcome warm? How can we make the warm welcome generous? So without giving too much away. So we're looking at all of those things as well. We're asking our general managers, sadly, to actually stay in their own hotels, which they have not done. I find that now it's quite scary, isn't it? That actually if you don't know your product, how can you sell it really? So how many times have you stayed in your hotel? Like when I have to, because I'm duty manager or something like that. But actually, you should, as hoteliers, they should be always in their room staying, or at least their management team should be eating in the restaurant, experiencing what the guest experiences all the time. So actually, I'm not going to go through all this, but we've designed and we have created a task force now who's, let's be honest, it's really hard. It's right for me to go and say, yeah, isn't everything amazing? But we need people on the ground keeping it alive. So we've recruited a hell of a lot of people at the moment who are actually in the hotels, just keeping it on. I have three things: somebody that's living, somebody that's on oxygen, and somebody that's on life support. We're on oxygen at the moment in some of these areas, but some of the hotels are probably on life support. We need to kind of bring it back to life, and so that's where we are today. Talked about that. Leadership behaviours, we also looked at that. This is a very, very busy slide. On the back of that, we've actually put quite a simple matrix together to create some consistency. So, daily lineup, communication. Jane talked about communication. We need to get back to basics of every morning there should be a daily lineup. And it sounds really weird, but we need to inform, listen and motivate everyone to look after their businesses as well. I'm not going to go through all this. I'm sure you're going to copy the slides, but that's fine. Daily walk rounds the hotel. Some of this you might think this is basic, but actually how many of you really walk around your building every day? This is your business card. Your hotel is your business card. How many of you don't give a tatty business card, so how do you this is what you're selling. Talked about colleagues as well. So that's kind of the mission, vision and values. Very, very quickly then, good old Maslow, it's been around for many, many years, but it's still very true today. I don't think it's still very important. It's still a very important model for us, and it's something I've used all the time. So good old basic needs. We are very much at the start of basic needs, and these are the sort of things I'm focusing on at the moment. So making sure we're a minimum wage employer. I don't want us to be a minimum wage employer, so I want us to be at least get to national living wage for everyone. At the moment, it's quite challenging to try and sell someone that's 24 while they're on a different pay rate to someone that's 25. Just because of their age. It's incredibly challenging. So I'm coming up with a strategy where we can link it to performance or retention or those sorts of things. And so at the moment, because I arrived quite late, the budget has been set. So I need to put a strategy together to convince the board that it's a good thing to actually move our base rate up. If we want to be competitive in our local market, we have to move our base rate up. I talked about colleague feeding. It's not really high on the agenda, but it's really critically important for our people that they actually get fed a good meal. It does link to productivity, it does link to energy levels. Certainly housekeeping, you've got to have lots of carbs. If you're making lots of beds in the morning, you've got to keep going. Back of house areas, critical. We're investing about 200,000 in all of our back of house areas because they really need to be looking good for our team. And then basic training. We really are talking about basic employee relations. Managers just don't know how to deal with stuff. So we really are at the start of something, and we will move on to this, but that's the focus at the moment. I've talked about that. In terms of promises to practice, I'm focusing on dare I say, good old attraction. So how do we go out and sell the dream? How do we recruit those people against our values? We're looking at onboarding at the moment. We're rewriting our induction program. Online, everything's paper at the moment. It's a killer. We're doing everything on paper. So I'm trying to look at an online learning document at the moment, creating a development journey for every job role. So somebody can see their progression, particularly millennials. They join you today, they want to know what's happening tomorrow. They kind of think they're there already, and so we really need to help them have that journey to map out the steps they need to take. I asked my old the HR group person, I said, tell me about, who was not there now, I said, tell me about your well-being strategy. What's that then? I said, oh, okay. So we've got a bit of work to do on our well-being. For me, it is important, people, health, well-being, financial support. And my last place, we even had a company coming in at some stage giving mortgage advice, giving financial advice, particularly in the recession times. I wanted people to help their money go a bit further. That became massive because it's incredibly hard to get a mortgage these days. So we actually help people with those sorts of things, and that was incredible. Really, people love that because it helped them with their personal finances. Pension advice. So we all join a pension, but how many people really look at their pension? Or how many people really understand the pension? I know we've got auto-enrolment now, but it's kind of people don't think it's necessary. When you're 22, 23, you think, what do I need to pay a pension for? And then good old CSR as well. So how do we connect with the community? We're not doing a lot of that at the moment. Our goal is to improve our colleague satisfaction. We're not doing too bad. That's kind of the stake in the ground. I did that sort of in the first 3 months of myself, how are we doing? And we're not doing too bad, but I definitely think we could make improvements in a number of areas. So that's really our goal there. And how do we kind of measure our success? Well, this is how we're going to do it at the moment. We haven't got targets, I'll be honest, for everything yet, but we definitely want to see an improvement in our engagement scores. I'd like to see in the next 2 years at least 60% of our senior managers coming from within, because at the moment we are buying in a lot of talent and it's costing us a fortune and it's taking a long time. I'd love to have people who've got the values in here as well as in here. That's really important. We're going to continue to do the quick pulse surveys, good old starter and leaver feedback. Is it going in the right direction? Are people leaving because for the right reasons, or is it because they just don't like us? Team retention, I haven't set a target on that because we are having a bit of a move at the moment. So I don't want to target anything on that yet till we've actually stabilised the teams. Ultimately, all of that guest engagement, that team engagement will link to guest engagement. So we will look at TripAdvisor, we're avid viewers of TripAdvisor, and the 2 hotels we've done so far, we have shifted. The York went from something like 27 to its number 6 in York. So we are seeing a positive impact there as well. Definitely repeat business as well. And from a financial perspective, obviously profit, achieving this, that we'd love everyone to achieve their bonuses, overachievement on the financial type, good old reduction in agency fees. I managed to get the last 2 places with no agency fee. We do need agency at the moment, but I think we could do it ourselves because we all fish in the same pond with online these days. And ultimately, interesting enough, we've already got a lot of interest. We're all owned at the moment, but we're getting a lot of interest from hotels owners who then lease their hotels to other brands. And they're saying, I'd like to talk to you about maybe you managing our brand. So that's quite another way for us to grow as well. And that's it. Thank you very much.
We do have some time for some questions if you'd like to ask anything from either Sean or James. Do we have any questions of the audience? Tom?
That's a massive project.
Yes.
That's absolutely colossal. So obviously you outsource some of it, but what's the size of the team? Who's doing what?
The team is quite. I'm very lucky. I have got an HR director and just changed a people development director and a people development assistant in each property. And I've just recruited a head of learning development, a regional for Scotland. I'm recruiting a regional for England, and an assistant for me, which is great. And I've never had one. And what's the other one? And a task force. We've got, and some of those people are permanent, and some of those people will actually be on board for about a year, and then we're going to move them to the Russell when it refurbs, and they'll take on a senior role there. So we're trying to manage the cost base that way as well. But we're not really outsourcing anything, I'll be honest. We're doing a lot of it ourselves, and it is quite knackering, but we're getting there. Yeah. Hello. Yes.
Hi. Given that you're going for a kind of local brand and a British brand,
Yes.
I'm wondering why you have a call centre in the States.
Yes. I'm asking that question. We inherited it, I'll be honest. We do feel we're on this journey, and I think one of the next challenges will be we should have a UK-based call centre.
Yeah, it's your first point of contact.
Exactly. We've actually been beefing up our in-house reservations because what we discovered that a lot of them didn't have an in-house reservations. They went straight to the call centre. So now, in most of the hotels in the city division, they are doing overflow. They'll do the out of hours. Does that make sense? Because they're 6 hours behind us, so they're doing the out of hours. And okay, that's kind of the start of the journey. But eventually, we'd love our own in-house. But it's difficult to change everything overnight, and that's the plan. But it is a plan to probably not use them. Yeah, that's a good question.
Where do you see diversity and inclusion linking into the employee engagement piece?
It's critical, absolutely. It's critical. We are a very diverse, multicultural organisation, and actually we've got some amazing concierge in Edinburgh, the Georgian, that are Polish, but they're more Scottish than I am. You know, they actually completely bought into the culture, and I think we embrace it. I think that's part of our CSR strategy. We have to do a lot more. We haven't really got a diversity policy as such, but we just, to be honest, at the moment we do have to put that together, but we have a great multicultural team already. There's some amazing talent in our people. They just need a bit of blossoming, if that makes sense. Yes, sorry.
I was just wondering, so it's great to see the values being embedded in the journey that you're now making sure they're not just a poster on the wall.
Yeah.
How did you come up with the values in the first place?
It was a 2-day event at the Pig. We loved the Pig.
Oh, that's the
yeah.
Pig.
And it was all the senior players that we had at the time. There was about 5 of us. There wasn't very many to it. And actually, myself and I actually did bring a facilitator in to actually help us. So it wasn't one-sided. I wasn't giving my opinion.
Yeah.
So we were really open, and we actually went through quite a long process of okay, and we drilled it right down, drilled it. And it did take 2 days, but it was a very long process to do that. So we all bought into it. And that's because it's interesting, somebody said to me, oh, can we just take those now and put it in our bit of the business? I said, no, it doesn't work that way. You've got to buy into them and you've got to own it, and then it's got to start living in the business. So that was the plan there. A lot of questions.
It sounds to me here that you've got a bought-in senior management.
Yes.
Have you ever worked where you don't have that, and how do you flip them?
I've got a mixed senior manager at the moment, I'll be honest. I've got actually I was presented, it was very good that I was doing this because I actually had to do these slides anyway, but yesterday I did a presentation to our shareholder yesterday and the CEO, and to be honest, I was a bit dubious of our CEO because he is a numbers man. But actually, he was totally supportive. I was really amazed that I was not, because his background is, it's all about finance. But he gets it. He said to me, absolutely, staff feeding, get it sorted. You know, put wherever you need the money, get it sorted. And I thought, oh God, you know, I wasn't expecting that because I actually did all the numbers and the research, as Jane was saying. Because in previous companies, I've had boards where you have to go and say, this is the ROI, and you have to really show, and they don't really, people are, and actually it was interesting this time, I had a meeting with him before, you normally, if he's bored, he gets his iPad out. But actually he kept his iPad off today, and I was like, wow, he's interested. He's engaged. I was like, wow, this is interesting. And I have had that where you have to read the audience, and then it's all about numbers. And actually show the return on investment. And actually, it doesn't matter how you get there, they just see the return. Cody is our Starwood guy. He was a bit ooh, but initially he kind of bought in at the end. So we got all the money I needed agreed for some of these things. So we got agreed, which is fantastic. So I was really, and the living wage, we had a big debate about that. They bought into the idea of moving it. They just need me to come up with a how, and actually how we're going to move productivity at the same time. Yeah, sorry.
No, sorry. So earlier we were talking about our engagement for our division, and literally we were talking about the traction we were getting. And it was interesting because we started explaining away the context. So if you took, for instance, a dip in your engagement scores, would you kind of go, oh, but we've been doing this and we've been doing that, and we started explaining away why all the dips were and not necessarily accountability. Are you going to?
I think we would look at them really. Yeah, we're totally accountable. We wouldn't be like fluffing it over.
Yeah.
No, we wouldn't. We'd have to be honest. I think that's these are real truth. How people feel. Perception is reality, isn't it? So if Mary feels that way, that's how it is to Mary. We need to really look at why Mary's feeling that way and what's the root cause. And actually, if you really analyse it, often it's the leadership.
Yes.
Very often it's their leadership or lack of leadership.
Because you talked about comms and how the importance there, and did you kind of do an audit, or did you get a sense that?
Well, we haven't done. This is our first kind of snapshot, and this is our first time. But we will do an audit on the comms. We're going to create some internal comms, and we are. Previously, I've worked with a company where you can send text messages. So, you know, challenging for us is getting the messages down. When you're cascading through a big hierarchy, we are quite hierarchical. Still at the moment, is getting to Mary. How do I get to Mary and actually make sure she knows what's really happening? So we are looking at, and that's why we did the survey like that through the text, through email, because most people have got an email these days, and or a text or a phone. And, but it's an ongoing challenge how we communicate. It's never ending. But yeah, we want to be real, and I think the point is fluffing it up to make it look good for the board.
But you know from experience how to do it. So
yes.
it's just
Yeah. Sorry, you've been hands up ages, sorry.
Hi. Yes, I wondered if you spoke about promise to practice, and clearly that's about leadership behaviour, and I wondered if you'd identified key leadership behaviours that needed to change in order to support that transition.
Yeah, well the ones we did, and if you saw we had some leadership behaviours, and then what we did, we actually said, okay, what processes and actions do we need to make sure they're living? And it is down to very specific things like everyone has to do a daily briefing to the team to ensure communication happens. everyone has to walk their business. One of our behaviours is walk the talk. So if you're going to sell, big it up, you actually need to know what you're talking about. So you need to be walking the floor. So we've made it very simple for them at the moment. It will get probably a little bit more complex when those things are bedded in, but we have got quite a low base in some of our properties. I'll be totally honest with you. Yeah. Yes.
Why is it called Project 1898?
So that's a good reason. So it's because we wanted to create a name, a story, and get some interest. And actually, 1898 is the year the Hotel Russell opened, and that's as simple as that. It just created, and it actually is a good talking point. There you go. It's got you interested. Because I'll be honest, some of our brands, if I say to some of the people we're trying to attract, come and work for some of those brands, it may not necessarily be an attractor. So we wanted to create a story about investment, change, repositioning, growth, strategy, start with capital. That's an exciting proposition for the sort of talent we want to bring into the organisation. It's not to say the talent we've got isn't up for it. They definitely are, because they're seeing investment in their hotels. Some of them are choosing not to stay, and that's fine. They prefer to work for some of the big main brands, and they're moving on, and that's fine. We're helping them along the way, some of them as well. But ultimately, Project 1898 was just to create a story from a recruitment and from a guest perspective. To try and also want to try and attract new guests. Our current guest base is, particularly meeting events, is quite a lot of government. So it's quite a lot of NHS. So it's quite, dare I say, it's what we need, bread and butter, but we think we can actually get a bit more, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? A bit more rate, ultimately. The only way for us, the hotels are incredibly busy, they're running about 90% occupancy. The only way we can do it is offer a price point a bit more, and we're also looking at food and beverage as well.
So you emphasize the importance of getting the board on board. You had that training with the senior manager.
Yes.
What about the employees that have lower positions? Have you done anything with them, or did you rely entirely on the managers to cascade through?
So what we did a bit of a road show when we went to every hotel, and we sort of said, this is who we are, this is what we're going to do. We created the values, and then we actually chose 5 people in each hotel to become our change gurus. And actually we took them on this journey. They went to Edinburgh Zoo as well and had 2 days there. And then they're the ones that actually rolled out the values in their own hotels. So it became much more personal, much more them, rather than me sitting there from head office. And we actually we gave them a framework. We didn't say this is the way you need to train it in, but we said this is the things you need to kind of cover. And I sat in on some, and it was amazing. They actually really took great pride because they'd had that empowerment to actually make their own decisions and actually run it themselves.
A lot of this relies on your managers, and it's often the case, right? As you said, people work for people, so you're relying on your managers to change their behaviours and to empower and to let their people do more. Fantastic. Sometimes along the way, you find managers who are so embedded in the way they do things that they don't actually want to give up. They like their little power base. So how are you dealing with that, and are you prepared to take the hard line?
This is where the 9-box group comes in. This is where we've now got a picture of potential and performance, and it's not performance. The performance initially was bottom line. That's what they were measured on. So nothing else really mattered. We're now saying it's people, guests, and owners. Those are the 3 stakeholders now you need to work on. And some people we've already moved. We have got some hotels in the countries bit that we haven't touched yet, so we're moving them there. We're having those conversations. Yeah, we're having a conversation. Some we're sort of having a kind of let's have a kind of chat about another plan. And we are, we haven't got a big pot of money, but we have got a pot of money.
Because they can make all the difference.
Well, it's
one
massive.
person
It's
can make all the difference.
absolutely. It's all about leadership and relationships. And if the guy at the top doesn't buy, or the girl at the top doesn't buy into any of this, it isn't happening. It's not going to hit the ground, and that's the challenge we've got. So we've spent a lot of time with the general managers and the hotel managers, getting them on board, and giving them really clear accountabilities that the goalposts of change now is people, guests, owners, and actually. Dare I say, they are being measured on basic things like staff food. They're being measured on the back of house. So we're walking the buildings every time I'm in a hotel and walking with them. Okay, where are we with it? And it's that basic because they hadn't bothered about it before. So lots of people are interested and excited, but there are a few, and we have moved some of them to new areas. Lots of questions. Cheers.
In terms of the
Yes.
Will you be benchmarking yourself against the kind of big reputation that Hilton and Hyatt, or more the kind of pig and
yeah, it'll be more against our comp set really, which will be Malmaison and Hotel de Vans and some of those players. Right, though we are big hotels, we want to have a small mentality in a big building, if that makes sense. So we want to deliver that pig experience in a bigger property, which I think will be challenging. So we'll benchmark ourselves against those lifestyle hotels. And also, some of the Sunday Times top one, we want to be in there, and actually there's some really great brands in there, not just hotels, but it'd be other great employers, basically. Yeah. Yes, sorry.
Are you doing any organisational redesign as part of the vision and values?
Yes, we are actually. As part of because as we refurb, we're also looking at the structure. And one of the things we're looking at the moment is creating one of our behaviours is back one team. So we're trying to break silos down. So, for example, Palace in Manchester has a very classic structure of reception, front concierge, luggage, doorman. We're creating a hospitality team so they can actually do a bit of everything, because they're all like, this is my job, that's not my job. And so we're breaking a lot of that down and creating a hospitality team. So they'll all have specialist areas, but they'll all do everything. From a business perspective, that means you've got people that can do more than one role. It's much more easy from a flexing a labour perspective as well. And it also gives them a new skill, which as well. So that's what we're working on. We're doing the same for food and beverage. We're creating one team. I might be a waiter. My core job is working in this restaurant, but actually I will be trained to go and work in the bar. So that's how we're doing it. Some of the roles, specialist roles, chefs or bartenders, we tend to maybe keep them where they are at the moment. But that's probably another stage. But we're focusing on those core where you think you can multi-skill someone. Absolutely. And trying to create more flexibility. It's quite. We had a lot of casuals and 0-hour contracts. I'm not a great fan, I'll be honest. I quite like minimum hour, but we had no commitment. So that was it. So they could say, I'm not coming in today, and that would be, okay, well, how are we going to service? So if we want to up the ante on the service, we need more commitment. So we've created a core team, and then we flexed it with part-timers, and we still need casuals for our banqueting and events business and some peak times like weekends, and that's where we use the casuals, not as a core. Everyone was pretty much on 0 hour, and it was only the management team that are actually contracted, which is pretty scary. Yeah. Okay.
So since you started that job, have you looked at attrition, and has their picture emerged as a result of what you've done, whether the attrition's gone down or up?
It's a difficult one because we're actually managing some of it out ourselves, I'll be honest at the moment. So that's why I haven't put a target against retention, because until we've kind of stabilised, and we're doing it pretty much with hotel by hotel at the moment, because we haven't got massive resource. So we're taking a hotel at a time, and we've kind of got some in hold at the moment where we're doing some basic things, and then we're actually, this year we'll have 5 hotels on board, and then next year another 5, and then another 10 next year. So this year we're piloting it, if that makes sense, and next year we start the massive rollout. That's the plan. But actually at the moment, some people, natural wastage, some people themselves are saying, I'm not on the bus, it's not for me. And then, but we have seen a reduction in employee turnover. We've seen a bit more higher turnover in management, but some of that's managed, and we wanted that to happen. Okay.
We have one final question, or you just about done?
Oh, thank you.
What are your thoughts about how HR employee engagement factors in with PR?
Oh, totally. I mean, and actually, to be honest with you, it's actually one of the things we've just had to do. We've just introduced a social media strategy because we had no activity at all going on, and actually, I need to recruit 120 people in Manchester. So I actually had to go out. I had to create a story for them, and so we've been doing a lot of all the stuff we're doing in house with the gurus, with the engagement. We've actually been posting that on social media just to get people interested. Because if I just said, come and join the Palace and we've got 120 jobs, it doesn't get any excitement. So we've been doing, so we really are at the start of a lot of things. So absolutely, there's a whole, you have to PR it, I think, sometimes. And actually, that's what we've been doing with definitely with social media. And I've employed a PR person to help write stories for me, to actually write this, because I'm not an expert in that area. So we're doing some great stuff, but can you just wordsmith it so it sounds really amazing? But then we've got to deliver it. That's my promises to practices as well. So, okay.
Very good. Well, look, I'd like to give you a huge round of applause. Thank you very much. questions, really engaging presentations.
Thank you.
So I hope you'll join us for a drink and a bite to eat downstairs. Just before we break, just an announcement about a couple of additional events coming up. So we have an event coming up very soon, actually, in a few weeks' time, the 11th of May. Very different presentation. We've got John Philpott, who's the former chief economist for the CIPD, now runs his own business with the Jobs Economist. He's been talking about the outlook for employment in the UK, so a real sort of economic overview. And then coming up in June the 7th in the evening, with our new academic sponsor, King's College London, we've got a panel debate which is hosted by Mercer on the subject of gender pay equality, which is very topical with the new bill coming through Parliament. So I hope you'll join us for both of those events. We have always tried to have a wide range of different topics. And please join us now for a drink and bite to eat. So thank you.